Hey guys, today we'll be talking about mental health in the workplace. This is something that's really important to me, given that it has brought about many of my challenges throughout the past. And yeah, we've got an expert, Adam, who specializes in talking about how the workplace can impact your mental health. And yeah, he's got his own podcast as well. So, really excited for today's chat, and we'll see what we can learn. Welcome to the Redesign Your Mind YouTube channel and podcast, where we have real conversations around mental health, self improvement, and how we can find more meaning in our lives. I'm your host, Stefan Moralia. You can watch episodes here, or you can listen to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. The show and any video uploads are loosely inspired by my book, Redesign Your Mind, Tools and Inspiration for Positive Mental Health, which is available on Amazon, Kindle, iTunes, and Audible. Please refer to the description below for more information, including my socials, a disclaimer, and how you can get in contact with me. Thanks for watching and joining me on the journey to redesign your mind. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining me today. How's it all going?
Thanks, Stefan. Really well, thanks, mate. It's been a pretty good day of study, so I'm feeling motivated.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I must admit, for a Monday, I got through it, but yeah, it's good to be here talking to you now. So
Yeah, bit of a
yeah,
struggle street.
yeah, that's it, man. So just like I said in the intro, you wouldn't have heard it before, but for those tuning in now, Adam's got his own podcast with another host as well, and that is called Settling is Not an Option. And basically, I might get you to spend a few minutes telling the listeners the basic premise of the podcast and what you're aiming to achieve.
Too easy. So we've been running it for, I suppose, it'd be probably 6 months now. So I run it with my friend Amanda Stanhope, who lives in Michigan. So we've certainly got our head around how to use Zoom and and the lighting and all the differences of audio and all those fun things. So that's been a bit of a lesson. But the basic premise is both of us kind of have treaded the same path. For those who don't know, so I previously worked at the NAB, the National Australia Bank, as a branch manager for 10 months. And before that, I was working as a team leader in the contact center at the CBA for over 8 years. And over that time, I became quite disenfranchised. I found that it really wasn't aligned to my purpose. I hadn't given a lot of thought. I just kind of stumbled into it, and the money was good. So I thought, yeah, definitely this is what I want to go for, which I imagine a lot of us do. And my friend Amanda was the same. So she was a chartered accountant for many years, again, became quite disenfranchised and thought this isn't really what I want to do with my life. So we both kind of were at differing stages. She was quite ahead of me in that she'd made that leap a lot sooner and had gone through a lot of lessons as to what to do when you kind of jump out of that security, that stability of that job. So she kind of coached me in a way as to what to expect and what to do. So, and that was really useful for me in kind of re-establishing a new path, which I'll kind of cover off on a little bit more later. But we just wanted to do the same for listeners, kind of just demonstrate to people, have a bit of introspection, kind of consider what you want to do with your life, your career. Don't just settle in a job because it feels good money-wise when, it doesn't get you out of bed every day. It's quite frustrating, sometimes just really unmotivating, and just trying to encourage people, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds good. And for those around the world, NAB and CBA are kind of like two of the largest banks in Australia. And it was really interesting talking to you before the episode, because I used to work at NAB as well, probably 7-8 years ago now, maybe longer. And it's crazy. Some of those things you said, I mean, in hindsight, I love the people and some of the work, but you know, you talk about that path and that journey. And I think, you know, a lot of young people, we get lured to that money and that status and, you know, all the good things that come with the job. And I must admit, I'm still in a similar type of environment. It's not as, I guess, fast paced, and it's more in line with who I am. And I'm, you know, I've told people on the podcast before, my day job is a financial advisor. So yeah, I'm, you know, the way I look at it that gets me out of bed is I'm helping people achieve their goals and feel more comfortable about money and, you know, where they're going and achieving things as well. So it's really interesting because 6 or 7 years ago, I could have taken a similar path to you. So, you know, got out of that world and done something totally different. And I did start a wellness blog and I did write my book about my story with mental health. However, I still, you know, stuck in that finance side. So I'm really intrigued to hear what yourself and Amanda, I think it was, you know, what do you guys do now? Like, it's easy to say settling is not an option, and I'm definitely one of those people. But then at the same time, like, how have you found that transition to going from a high income, guaranteed type of workflow or work, sorry, to, you know, now I'm guessing, and you might tell us more about your work now, but it's probably a bit more sporadic and it's a bit more uncertain, which can also cause anxiety in that as well. So how are you finding that balance, you know, now that you've made that big change?
And that's a really good point too. And we've tried to kind of flesh that out in our podcast, and telling our stories that, you know, we're not saying to people, you know, just jump out of your job. If you're feeling a little frustrated and down, just jump out of that job and just go for it, because sometimes circumstances don't permit that. You know, and
Yeah.
we were fortunate, I suppose, in that from a money perspective, you know, probably because we'd worked in those jobs that, you know, we were able to acquire, you know, some decent money. It meant that we had a bit of, I suppose, a nest egg to kind of stabilize us. So, you know, make sure to pick the right time, because money is always a factor, I think. Like, I think in as much as my opinion of money has changed, I certainly think money causes a lot of issues, and there's a lot of people out there that probably acquire more than they need, because it's been quite interesting for me in that my income has dropped significantly. So I'm a full-time PhD student now. I did have other jobs I was doing on the side, but I don't actually have any other work now, and that's because I choose not to. And I'm getting by because I have a scholarship, you know, which is kind of covering me with the day-to-day stuff. And then I obviously have that nest egg I mentioned too. So I'm fortunate enough that I'm in a position where, in as much as, you know, towards the end, I wasn't enjoying those jobs I had, they have set me up for what I've got now. So I think it's important not to ever, I guess, resent or be frustrated about what you did before, because it can sometimes be what, you know, kind of pushes you to the next and more satisfying stage. So that'd be the big thing, I think, is try to just make sure that you're in the right mindset for it, and that, you know, if you do take that leap and you do, you know, find yourself without work or a reduced income for some time, that it's not going to throw off your mental health, because financial literacy stuff, as you know, that's a big trigger for, you know, potentially poor well-being or even moving, you know, into kind of mental illness. So
Yeah, and I love your answer there. Like, that's what people need to understand, that there is a trade-off. It's all well and good to say, yes, I'm going to go on this path, but if you don't have that financial backing, you've really got to weigh up the pros and cons of each side. For me personally, you know, that I probably still probably work a bit too hard on that side, but for me, it just means that I've got to find other ways to help my mental health. So one thing for me, and sorry, I'm going on about this, but
no,
one thing,
it's good to hear.
one thing that I changed in myself was knowing that, okay, my job, you know, I've got a find the ways to enjoy it, which I do, but it's not the be all and end all. Like when you get home, you need to find something fun and rewarding and satisfying to do. And whether that's spending time with family or friends, or, even last night I was playing a board game with my girlfriend, and, that's something maybe 7, 8 years ago I would have said, oh, I've got work tomorrow. I've got to relax and just watch TV and rot on the couch. And that's that mentality that makes work more of a drain. So you've got to find the ways to kind of get that spark happening, even if it's not through your job, I guess, as well. So,
I think
yeah.
that's a really good point too, because I think, in as much, we spend a lot of our lives at work, and I think it's important to try and find work that's purposeful, because I think, set money aside, if there's a job that pays less but gives you purpose and meaning, whereas the other job pays more but you feel, frustrated, always go for the lesser paying one, I think. But at the same token, and it's funny, I watched this movie recently, this Disney Pixar movie called Soul.
Okay.
And it's a great movie, highly recommend watching it. And that talks specifically, without ruining it, about, people who just focus on work, and it's all about work. That's, constantly chasing, I want to be successful in what I do. But meanwhile, you're missing out on life, so playing a board game, or I really love just getting out in nature and going for a walk. My girlfriend and I went for a walk before the podcast.
Nice.
And it was just nice kind of walking along, looking at the water, and just kind of immersed in that. Whereas I think, like, if you're busy and rushing around, you miss everything around you, which is really beautiful. So yeah, don't let work consume your life. Let it almost be, I guess the best explanation I heard is it should be like it should kind of, you should have an inner purpose, which is to enjoy life and be happy and useful. But then your outer purpose, being your job, should really serve that inner purpose, and that's why I left the NAB, was that I felt like there was a disconnect between my inner and outer purpose. And I thought, no, I need to just go and chase what's really going to complement this. And that's why I think life has now become a lot more enjoyable and happy for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you think as well, I'll give you my thoughts after, but do you think our generation is different to our parents or Gen Xers and maybe the boomers and all of that? Do you think we're different in that? Although we were a little bit materialistic, I think, you're probably, I'm guessing in your 20s or 30s like me. And do you think we all got to a point pretty early on where we said, I'm just seeing common trends that we said, hey, you know what? Like, I don't give a shit about having this extra big house or car, or, that's nice and I'll work towards it. And if it comes, that's great. But am I going to slave myself to this type of life? And, maybe there's another way I can find happiness. Do you think we're different? And what do you see as the patterns that may be different for the years to come for our generation?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think our generation certainly, there's some hard times for us, whereas maybe our parents or the boomers in particular wouldn't have to go through those. But I do agree. I do think we're always challenging the status quo, especially in ourselves. We're all probably a lot more introspective. We'll sit down, contemplate, and say, well, no, I'm not going to just do something because it's what my parents did before me, and they didn't like their job, but they just felt, just push through life and just do it because that's what you do. I think we've got to that point where, no, we want to kind of consistently challenge things and think, well, how could I do better? How could I enjoy life better and make, better choices for the planet, for the communities and things like that. So yeah, it is nice. But at the same time, like it sometimes makes for quite a difficult life, I think, because we don't have that stability maybe that the generations before us did.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And it's something that we probably need to constantly evaluate as well, or reevaluate. Like for myself, I'm always, yeah, you're right. We do look inwards a lot more. And sometimes I think, oh, ignorance would be bliss. Like, I feel like a lot of the older generations didn't think that way, and it would be nice. But the fact is, we do think that way. And, I think another thing I say, I think we're all pretty, I don't know what the word is. It's not loyal. I don't want to say that we're all loyal, because some people couldn't care less. But I think we all want to do well, and do well for whoever we're working for, or, whatever it is we're doing. I think it's just that we're getting better at saying, right, there's something new for me. And the other challenge is as well that, our generation, like, if you look at some of the jobs that exist now, like, I'm 32. So when I was in year 12, far out, that's 15 years ago now. Um, half the jobs that are pretty cool now, or earn a lot of money, if that's what you're aiming for, or, are out there, probably didn't exist back when we were in high school. So, how can you can't do what our parents did, that you choose a career and that's it. It's constantly evolving. And even my job now, like, in 5 years time, computers could replace that, and who knows what will be there. So we probably need to evolve too, but I think it's also because we want to evolve. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of that evolution is down to, probably our generation paving the way in terms of, we've got so many entrepreneurs out there, like people willing to take a risk and
Yeah.
innovate and constantly create, people who can look back and say there's a gap here, and rather than saying I'm frustrated there's a gap, they go, all right, well, I'm going to fill that gap with this business. And that would be really tough, because unlike being on a salary or a wage or something, working for a big company and having that stability, it would be really tricky. There'd be days that would be really taxing. But those people, I think, are pioneers, and really should be celebrated, because they are the ones that are evolving, the business landscape. And rather than kind of being a slave to market trends, that can sometimes, kind of topple businesses. So, if you get settled in this job, that job could fall down, as you say, because AI, replaces it. They say, right, well, rather than actually being a slave to that, I'm going to step out and create my own path. So, yeah, I really applaud those people, because I think they're really brave. And it's changing the world every day. I don't know how they do it. It would be tough.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, building on that as well? What are your thoughts on the amount of hours you work and mental health? Like, even if you are in a job you love, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think some people, would say working long hours is a great thing. So, Elon Musk, for example, one of probably the most, successful people in the world, I think said he works 120-hour weeks, which may work for him. And some people may prescribe to that life and say it's great. And I think some successful, I can't remember the name of the person, but a successful kind of founder of Google or Twitter or something, I think it was Google. She literally said that she would not have toilet breaks because she was just so focused on work, Yeah.
No.
And like, it's, and this person, is incredibly influential, because obviously, Google, what could be a bigger company than that? And, some people will jump on that bandwagon and say, all right, well, look, Elon Musk is got all this money and success and fame. I'm just going to now bust my gut. And, but, if you want to do that, no worries, that's fair. But I think at the same time, you really need to know what your limits are and what's good for you, because I think it can be really bad for your mental health. So if I equate it to when I was a branch manager, I'd take the laptop home at the end of the day, usually because the branch was so busy, couldn't get all my work done, want to make sure my stats were ready for the meeting the next day. And my life really was get home, crack a beer, get some smokes into me because I used to smoke. I haven't smoked for a year, actually.
Wow.
Funnily enough, coinciding when I left that job. But literally that was my job, was come home, have a drink, have a smoke, and then get on the laptop and spend a few hours of unpaid overtime. And that was really bad for my mental health. Like my well-being was bad physically and mentally. And so it kind of almost in a way became a no-brainer to say, I can't live this life anymore. Plus for me, I've got a 5-year-old daughter. I thought, I don't want to be this kind of role model for her who just sees dad who's constantly tired and drained and stressed.
Smoking.
I thought I want her to see, no, my dad loves life. He's working less hours, probably on less money, but he's happier, and more present. So, and I mean, look, there's a lot of research there to suggest that, too many demands, too many hours is really bad for your mental health, and it does take its toll over time. So you do need to be really mindful of the loads that you're working. And that's not just on the individuals, I guess. It's really on organizations and businesses to kind of look at, what are the demands on people, particularly in finance, because finance is continuing to, get more and more intense. Firstly, like, what are the demands on these people, and the number of hours that they need to work? Do they have adequate resources? Because quite often there's not enough staff. So it means that, there's more and more pressures and hours put on people. And like one thing that's being talked about a lot, particularly in Australia, because there's a lot of really good moves in the mental health space, to do with work, is the companies that then, basically like say, oh, we're going to offer like a yoga class, or we're going to have fruit bowls in the office and things like that. This is our well-being, we're committed to well-being. Yet these people that go and do that yoga class come back to the office and they're behind in their work because no one's picked up that slack while they're at the yoga class. And so, it's workplaces need to really look at how they design jobs, and people need to start also reflecting, and saying, well, if my work's not going to change, maybe I should, because it's life's worth more, I think, than working many hours and burning yourself out.
Yeah, it's a load of shit. The corporation saying, oh, we're, helping people do this and that. And, I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, but I'll bring it up in a minute. But the thing is, like, especially in the banks, it was always one in, one out. So, and I know other firms and other industries are just like this too, that if you don't do the work, you quit, you burn out, you take a different role, and someone's ready to replace you. And these banks and big corporations and all of that, I think one thing that's going to help with this is, like you said, people just saying, well, I'm not doing it anymore. And eventually when no one else steps in that role, everyone says, well, fuck that. I'm not committing to that. They will then have to change. Until we change, they'll keep, taking us for granted. So no matter what you do, that any type of job, you really need to stand up for yourself, because you also stand up for the next guy. One great example of that is I know someone who works in a legal firm, and legal firms work really long hours. I'm talking 15, 20-hour days sometimes, apparently. And it's ridiculous. And so this guy said, when I was a grad, he did the long hours and he progressed and all of that. And, now he's part of recruiting the new grads. Anyway, so let's say it was probably a year ago, maybe two, just before COVID. And he said, oh, we had a new bunch of grads, and they all started going home at 5:30, whatever. So they got rid of a few of them. They kept the ones they really liked and got rid of a few. Anyway, they brought new ones in, and then they were doing the same thing. And they got rid of them. then the new ones came in and same type of thing. And they said, oh shit,
Mm.
like we have to change. You can't do this anymore. Either we've got to put up our prices and get more staff, or, we can't make as much profit, or we're in an industry that doesn't generate enough revenue. I think that's the thing we all need to learn as a society, because, yeah, the Gen Zs or whatever they're called, they're even better than us. They say, no, I'm not, subjecting myself to that at all. So, yeah, I really think we do need to take that example and start as a collective moving towards that to make that change.
Yeah, and I think, if enough of us do that, and if organizations start waking up too, and I was having a conversation with a friend the other night just about where it's all about, cutting costs and basically saying rather than having, 4 people, we'll now condense those 4 roles into, say, 1 or 2 people's roles. And all of a sudden, this person is flustered and exhausted and burned out. And, what's going to be the long-term cost, of retraining someone when they eventually burn out? Maybe they go on workers' comp because they just can't cut it. There's going to be so many more costs in the long run, of doing it that way. So it's better sometimes to go, all right, well, maybe it is going to cost more on the short term and it's going to hurt us, but we're setting ourselves up for success. We're really considering, okay, well, how can we do this in the best way to optimize it for someone? Because, yeah, people will not tolerate it. And, that's a big thing with this, this shift in workplace mental health in Australia and really globally is, it's a big win for talent acquisition as well, as you said, because more and more the generations will keep turning over and you'll be constantly retraining people. And those people that are, absolute guns and will do great things for your business, they won't want to work at your company because, the words will start to spread. People will say, don't work at this company because, they don't care about you. You'll work long hours, the pay's not worth it. And word will spread and those people will go to a company that they hear good things about, because again, social media and advocacy and all that, really, the word spreads quicker than ever. So you can't hide. So I think, organizations need to step up and get better and stop just doing these really like tick box exercises. But at the same time, we need to realize we have power as well, because if we all come together and say, nah, I refuse to do that, it changes it. Yeah.
They won't have any customers. And that, I think people need to understand, we have all the power. Like,
yes.
You just think if I know we're hammering the banks. I love the banks in some ways, but
yeah, and look, I had a great time at the banks as well. I was going to put that disclaimer in there, so it's certainly not a bank fake, right?
Yeah, but like, all right, let's use a telecom example instead. Like, if Telstra, we find out that Telstra are really harsh on their staff, and it's a bad organization, and that people will start moving to Optus, and things will change there. So just know that we have more power than we think. But yeah, I think we've got to start doing more about it. So hopefully, the next, 5 or 10 years. And I think COVID's been a part of that too. Like COVID, the whole flexible working thing. I think, you've been doing your PhD, so you're at home probably, or you're on your own time schedule anyway most of the time. But for some of us in finance and similar things, we've really proven that we can do the work from home. If, to be honest, I've heard of a lot of companies say that productivity's up. Sure, you can't watch what they're doing every minute of the day, and maybe people do take advantage of that a little bit and put a load of washing on or pop out to the shops or whatever. But the facts are that overall the result is better. And then you've got mental health and things like that, which makes it even better. So, I think there's going to be a big change in, how workplaces work in the next 5 to 10 years. But we really got to make sure we don't lose the momentum we've got through COVID as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, like people keep saying, unprecedented. And I think, yeah, it is unprecedented in modern times. Like, how many times have we been given an opportunity, to sit back and reflect as much as we have and kind of think, all right, well, how can I change my life? And that's by no means saying, because I'm down in Tasmania, so we've been pretty lucky, touch wood, that we haven't had a case in a very long time.
Yeah, well,
So we have been able to kind of sit back and enjoy this reflection time. So, anyone out there that's kind of suffering and has been impacted, I certainly, my heart goes out to them. But, this time may never come back, where we can sit back and go, all right, well, what do I really want to do in my life? How do I want to work? And it has proved, I like how remote work in particular, in my experience, was always something that everyone was terrified to look at. There were always so many pilots in the work that I did of, let's pilot this working from home thing. In the end, let's scratch that idea because it's too risky, it might impact productivity. Whereas, or it was, we just can't do this. It's impossible to do working from home. But then COVID has basically said, no, we 100% can. So there is really nowhere to go now. Businesses they won't be able to say we can't do it because we have. So I think that's really good for a lot of people. Yeah. And I think, everyone's going to be different in what makes them productive as well. Like, I think in as much as there may be some people that, do take the piss and, do maybe just go, okay, I'll just kind of watch a whole lot of Netflix today instead of doing my work. I think if you hire the right people, those people may, watch a little bit of Netflix here and there, but that may make them really productive at another time, Like, I think it was Atlassian that I heard of years ago that said, look, you just do the work. Just do the work. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what hours you do it in. Just have the work done to the best of your ability. And, Atlassian's one of the most successful companies in the world. So it just shows you that, just trust your people, hire the right people, however you do that, because that'd be a tough process, but hire the right people and trust that those people are setting up their work schedule in the best way for them, because their results will speak for themselves, really.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully we're moving towards that. Like, I know some people that still fill out timesheets and things, and it's like, well, and as we know, we're in a world now where it's like, like you said, get the job done. That most of us want to do the right thing. If we need to stay back an hour, 2 hours, whatever, every now and then, that's fine. We'll get it done. But you've got to trust us as well. And this generation, we've got a real opportunity the next, X many years to change how work even flows. I mean, it could even be the end of the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That's a whole another topic. But this flexible working thing, and not to stereotype, but a lot of mums want that flexible working, and I've worked with a lot of mums that are better than people that come in and do the full 9 to 5 or whatever. They'll get it done. They might log on at 10 o'clock at night and quickly do something, and might not be there for a few hours during the day, but it actually works out better. We just got to understand that, everyone's going to be different, and hopefully work doesn't become as regimented in the future. So, but Adam, I want to ask like a kind of a final thought for anyone that is feeling like they're settling right now, and they're going to go listen to your podcast. Settling is not an option, and I'll put the link in.
Thank you for the plug.
But what would you say to someone if they feel like they're settling but they're not sure? What would you tell them? Even maybe they still like their career but they're not sure about their workplace, or they're thinking, oh, I want to try this career but I need the money. What would you say to someone that is not sure if they're settling or not? What would you tell them to do?
Well, take some time to reflect. So I think just look at, because if you kind of, beginning to think that you might be settling. You know, a good indicator is usually you're starting to get frustrated where you might not have before, or maybe those mornings where you wake up and think, oh, I'd love another half an hour in bed. You know, they're becoming more frequent. These are like, I think, almost just indicators that, okay, maybe you need to consider, you know, what opportunity you have for change. And as he said, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to jump out of the job. Understand, to Stefan's point, you know, that you have the power. You really can maybe go to your employer if you think it's suitable to do so and say, like, I'm frustrated in the role I've got. How can I do it differently? You know, how can I kind of design my work in a way that's maybe more challenging or impactful for me? On the other side, though, if you feel, you know, the work you're doing's, you know, really not kind of purposeful, or you're disenfranchised, or you feel this is not suitable, you know, take that time to sit back and think, okay, well, what would be purposeful for you? And I think for any listeners, if you haven't heard of the concept of ikigai, or the Japanese concept of reason for being, there's a wonderful, wonderful TED talk from a guy called, I think it's Tim Tomashiro. Tim Tomashiro, or I'll send that to Stefan at some point, just so he could put it in the notes. But he does a wonderful presentation on that. And the whole idea of ikigai is it's under 4 quadrants, right? Which is, you know, what's something that's good for the community, what's something I'm good at, what's something I can get paid for, and what's something that the world needs. So it crosses those 4 quadrants. And that's literally what I did when I was trying to change my path. Because it really, you know, if you can find your ikigai and what your reason for being is, it really helps you, you know, kind of inform the first steps of your path. So, you know, just spend some time reflecting. Don't make a hasty decision. Make sure that you're in a good and appropriate position to do so, especially financially. And when the time's right, you know, if you can consistently feel like, no, I feel I have settled, I've given enough time now reflecting about it, that's the time to take action. And I think a tool that's really good as well, a bit of a plug for LinkedIn, which is, funnily enough, you know, why I'm on the show, because this is where me and Stefan connected. LinkedIn's a wonderful resource that when you find, you know, if you decide to change careers and you want to do something different, you can connect with people on there and just start a conversation, because that's how I became a PhD student, is I connected with my primary supervisor, who I certainly had no intentions of studying at the time I spoke to her, but that led down this new path, you know. So it's all about talking to people and doing a bit of research and a bit of reflection. But yeah, there will be indicators there. If you're happy though, that's awesome. Congratulations, and stay where you are.
Nah, that's gold, Adam. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. I think I've learned a few things today as well, and I'm going to take some of that on board. And yeah, great to hear 2 different perspectives of how we both made the change. So thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, I'll put all your info in the bio.
Thanks so much, Stefan. Take care.
What a interesting episode with Adam. Definitely worth checking out his podcast. Yeah, surrendering is not an option. And yeah, I think there's a lot we can all learn, and there's a lot we can all contribute to society for that one. So thanks again for listening, guys. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching.